Hello, hair and parenting friends. I know, where have I been? Well, I have 4 kids and like 14 jobs and a dog and 2 guinea pigs and crazy life. So I've been gone. I'm sorry, forgive me. But I'm gonna jump back on the wagon, okay? And I'm gonna try and do better. In the last week, I've come across 2 very specific people that I've said, oh, you should get on my hair and parenting Facebook page. And I'm like, wow, I haven't done shit for a while. So tonight I'm not going to talk about hair. I'm going to get right to parenting, and I'm going to talk about something specific that came up in my world with somebody I know. You know who you are. Today or yesterday. Words. I want to talk about words. Let's first look at the words punishment and consequences. I have gone out of my way throughout all of my parenting to make a very purposeful decision on what I choose to do. And I think that's the underlying thing with parenting is, remember we talked about how if you don't pick and choose how you want to parent, you're naturally going to either parent exactly how you were parented or exactly the opposite of how you were parented. Neither of which is usually ideal or good. What you want to do is make a choice, somewhere in the middle, a compromise, and make a choice of how you want to parent. I have decided that words are really important. I don't use the word punishment with my kids. I use the word consequences. The word consequences can be a positive, it can be a negative, and it can be somewhere in the middle. But I think when you say the word consequences to your children, to our young people, it paints a different picture than when you use the word punishment. In other words, you know, honey, if you make this choice, you might have this consequence. If you make this choice, you might have this consequence. Versus saying to them, if you make this choice, you might have a punishment. And if you make this choice, you might not have a punishment. Think about what punishment feels like when somebody says that to you or in regards to you or something you've done. Think about when you were raised. Okay, parenting is very different in today's world than it was back when I was a kid or when you were a kid. So think about that and what punishment says versus consequences. I really try to instill the word consequences with my kids. The other thing about the word consequences is something that I try to do all the time in my parenting. When you're parenting, there's the now. Okay, we're dealing with a certain situation that went on right now, a certain circumstance, okay? And you have consequences. We have consequences of this going on right now. I always talk about with my kids, I give them analogies or parallels of the real world. And what does that look like when you're older? And what could be a situation like this where you would have consequences? Well, they're going to start to define consequences in their mind. That a consequence could be something that they like. I mean, a consequence could be you get an amazing raise at a job, right? A consequence. Well, a consequence could also be you lose your driver's license. So, but you're using that same word versus when you use the word punishment, you can't take the word punishment and give that a positive. In other words, you know, if you make this choice, you're going to have this punishment, and that punishment might be you lose your driver's license. Well, you can't take the word punishment and then take it to the other side of the fence and say, well, if you have this, if you do make this choice, you're going to have this punishment of getting this amazing raise, right? It doesn't work. So the word consequence is an amazing word that works in parenting, in my opinion. Second set of words, okay? Chores, responsibilities. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I grew up, you have chores. This is your chores. This is your chores. Come home from school on the weekends. This is your chores. Pick the weeds, pick up the dog poop, whatever, the chores, okay? Think of those 2 words, chores, responsibilities, okay? We all have responsibilities. I have responsibilities every day. Now, my responsibilities look different than the next person, but ultimately, what we want to do is teach our young people that responsibilities are good. They're not bad things. And when you think of the word chores, what does that feel like? It feels heavy and it feels like, oh my God, I have to do this, right? Nobody wants, we adults, we don't want to wake up on a Saturday and go, oh my God, I have to mow the lawn. It's my chores, right? Somehow the shift of the word chores and responsibilities, it physically does something different in our bodies and our minds. So I do that with my kids. I don't use the word chores. I never have used the word chores, and I won't use the word chores. I use responsibilities, because in life we have responsibilities. My young people, you have responsibilities at home. Well, what are your responsibilities? And with that comes the conversation of, what do you want your responsibilities to be? And there's room for that kind of a conversation with your young people. Do you want your responsibilities to be put away your clothes when they're clean? I mean, let's think about that for a minute. And I have that kind of conversation with my kids. And I'll say to my kids, you know, if you want to leave your clean clothes on the floor and that's where you want to go and get them, you know, that's your choice. I mean, you know, in the back of my parenting mind, I'm thinking, I don't want them to do this, right? But they have to make their own choices, and they've got to define their own responsibilities. In addition to us saying, yes, there is a place as a parent, like, hey, these are your responsibilities. These are some of your responsibilities, and you know, you might not like them, but these are responsibilities. And I do a lot of talking to my kids about, again, like I said with our previous word, later in life, we start to learn, actually younger too, but we get to a point where we learn like responsibilities, like cleaning the dishes. Like if you take that and it feels like a chore, right? That's heavy and ugly and a battle in our minds. But if you're like, you know what? I have this responsibility to clean my dishes, keep them clean, keeps me healthy, keeps me not getting sick from germs in the kitchen, and I have this responsibility to take care of things, it just does something different. So the whole point of this video is that words with our young people in parenting has a critical impact on the outcome of who they become, both in your home now and as adults in this world. So think about your words, and what words do you want to use? Third set of words. Okay, how many of you out there use the phrase timeout? Do you use it? Timeout. Now I can tell you that I don't hear it as much as I did when I was a kid. But time out, time out, time out. I don't care how you use it. It's still going on, okay? A long time ago, I was like, who wants to be put in timeout? What is timeout, okay? I decided a long time ago, or I learned in myself, that timeout is not a punishment, although I think there's people that use it as such. What I decided is that timeout for myself or for my kids, you know, for me when I was young, it should be an opportunity for a person to reflect or think about what was going on. It's not a punishment. It's not a punishment in my opinion. So what I use instead of timeout is take a break. I think that as adults, who doesn't need to take a break sometimes, right? Who doesn't need to say, you know what, I need a little break. I need to step back. I'm emotional. I've got to, you know, let me just cool off a little bit, like count to 10. We all hear these kind of things. It's really important. So I don't use timeout. I don't think timeout is a good way to teach what you're ultimately trying to teach your kids or our young people. Again, I think you have to think about, why are you putting them in timeout? Is your child going to timeout because you yourself need a break? Well, that's different, right? You need to really think, we need to really think about what we are doing. We have to step back and think about our parenting. So I don't use the word timeout. I never have used the word timeout. I tell my kids, you know what, it seems like you need to take a break. Now, they will battle you, just like the whole timeout thing. You'll get the huffiness and whatnot, and it's again, like, you have the right, and it is okay to be like, you know what, take a time out, go sit on the couch, do what you need to, you know, create that timeout space for them. But ultimately, if they're in a place where they are removed from doing other things, it might take a while. But ultimately, what we start to do as humans is we start to think about, well, what was going on? And then you can take that forward and imagine what that conversation is that you would then have with your young person after they take their break. But again, think about what it feels like. What did it feel like when you were younger to be told, go to timeout, or it's timeout time, or whatever? That feels something. It feels like you feel it in your body and your mind. Now imagine what it feels like to say, hey, it seems like you need a break. Let's take a break. Let's both take it. Like, taking a break is a really good thing, right? Taking a time out is a really good thing as well. But when we say that, it doesn't feel like a good thing. So I don't use the word time out. I use take a break.